would use to kind of measure this and see if we're getting the result we want here?
Right, good question. We actually...
Could I answer that?
Okay.
So this is where this project lands in the great sort of plan scheme of things, and that requires us to back up a little bit. The 2020 Streets project was a much larger project, and because of the uncertainty of revenues, we cut that in half, and we did the named hub streets. But the entire project was designed, and it included La Plaza as well as West.
Testing. Testing. Angela, if you can hear me, can you let me know? Testing. Testing. Angela, if you can hear me, can you let me know? Good evening, Vice Mayor Linman.
Hello, how are you doing?
Pretty well, and yourself?
Not bad at all, not bad at all. Check with me at the end of a couple of hours.
I certainly will.
Although famous last words, I foresee no issues tonight. I may rue those words, but let's hope not.
You know that's the same as saying quiet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lauren, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Oh, terrific. I changed my audio equipment, so it should be a little bit better.
Yes, much better.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have to say I like your choice of council clothes tonight. You look sartorially resplendent.
I would say ditto. You know, I was just on a Zoom a little while ago with the chamber, and it was much more casual attire.
Well, I still have my muckluck slippers on underneath this, so it is a little bit kind of like, but it's, yeah. Kind of getting used to the habit, getting the old sport coat out of the closet and getting back into my previous habits a little bit.
Right? As long as we don't do like some of the other Zoom faux pas that have occurred.
No, I won't even get into that. That's too dangerous, even if we're not live yet. But yeah, no, there's been some issues. It's very powerful to be able to mute this and turn the speaker off. You have to run in the house for a second, grab a bite, whatever, but there's also danger implicit.
There is. I will be right back. I have to restrain my cat.
You look very distinguished in those glasses, Mark.
That's a good thing because I can't look at all without them anymore, hardly.
I'm just admiring my own picture and wonder where my hair went.
I think it's a Zoom side effect. My forehead grows an inch or two. I've noticed under Zoom too. Normally it doesn't look quite as bad, so maybe that's it.
Well, I'll lie if you will.
I'm going to be a little careful about touching that statement at a council meeting, Steve, but I get the sentiment of what you're saying.
Hopefully we're not being recorded yet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's one of the most famous last words that's probably always been said, Steve.
silence is deafening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Michael.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Good to see you, Stephen.
Good to be seen. Thank you.
Steve, did you get your vaccine already?
We have number one. Number two is scheduled in about a week from now.
Great.
We use Sutter Health. No side
Did you-
effects from number one. I understand number two is a little stronger.
Were you involved at all in the delay of your second shot with Sutter, Steve?
I haven't had the second shot. We were delayed in the first. We got an email saying that it was canceled, and then we got a phone call one day saying if you can be here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you can get it. So we dropped everything and went over.
I'd say that's pretty good incentive nowadays, yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad that worked out. Yeah, I've been following. It looks like this. They got more from the state this time around. It's still kind of tight, but that's really frustrating. That's the first I've seen of anybody having problems filling second doses. You know, I'm not surprised to see first doses delayed sometimes, but once they give that, you kind of need to follow through, you'd think.
We used to get shots for anthrax and plague in the military. I don't know who's ever gotten plagued lately, but both of those were a couple of aspirin experience. They really kicked you.
Did you get Moderna or Pfizer?
We got Pfizer.
Ah, I hear that's a little easier.
Well, I am showing 7:01. Do you have everyone that we need on here, Ms. Burgess?
Yes, Mayor Moore.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead and start the meeting, the joint meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. And if we could have a roll call, Ms. Burgess?
Councilmember Harvey.
Here.
Councilmember Sparks.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Here.
Mayor Moore.
Here, thank you. And if you would all join me on the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all. Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to just offer up a moment of silence for us to gather our thoughts and think positive things that as we move forward in our council deliberations. Thank you all for your indulgence on that. And I would now look for approval of the minutes of the Cotati City / Planning Commission meeting of February 23rd, 2021, and the Cotati City Council regular meeting of February 23rd.
This is Councilmember Harvey. I motion to approve.
This is Councilmember Ford. I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes, thank you. Now we'll move on to announcements. Meeting orientation for new attendees / viewers. In conformance with the Brown Act and the adopted City Council rules, the meeting agenda includes items labeled as action items where the City Council will consider the item and citizens are afforded the opportunity to provide comments relevant to the item being discussed. The meeting agenda also includes a citizen business item, which is a designated place on the agenda where citizens have the right to say whatever they wish. The City Council may or may not choose to respond to comments as the government code allows. However, if the City Council declines to respond, it should not be perceived as giving credence to or agreeing with any statements that the City Council or its members believe are incorrect, misinformed, or purposefully biased. Measure G supports police services, a variety of recreation programs for all ages, and the maintenance of our streets, parks, and public buildings. See details on the web at cotaticity.org. Citizens interested in receiving City Cotati community alerts via text or email are encouraged to sign up at nexel.com or by texting your zip code 94931 to 888-777. It's our top priority to provide you with prompt and comprehensive customer service, and we will continue to offer all city services. However, in the interest of public health, City Hall is currently closed to walk-in traffic due to the current health officer order. During this time, our services have temporarily transitioned to phone and web-based, as well as appointments by request. Staff continue to be available to answer your questions 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Like always, we'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to contact the city at 707-792-4600 or info@cotaticity.org. If you have a non-emergency issue after normal business hours, you can contact us at 707-792-4611. And of course, if you have an emergency, please contact 911. Continue to look for updates on the city's website and social media channels available on Facebook, Instagram, Nexel, and Nextdoor. And if you'll bear with me for a moment, I forgot to introduce the staff here. Mr. Obed, if you could introduce our staff that are here this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So obviously we have myself, City Manager, Damien Obid. We have our fabulous City Clerk, Lauren Burgess. We also have all of our department heads here tonight. So that includes Angela Corder, Director of Administrative Services, Craig Scott, our Public Works Director and City Engineer, Noah Ouch, our Community Development Director, and Michael Parrish, our Police Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Obid. And now I would look for approval of the final agenda. Any changes to that?
No proposed changes, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Obid. Now we will move on to citizens' business and public comment for consent calendar items. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any items listed on the consent calendar or any matter not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda during this period. Pursuant to City Council Policy 2017-2, comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for any and all items on the consent calendar. The mayor may extend the time for a reasonable time where a disability accommodation has been requested. And do we have anybody that would like to make citizens' business comment?
Thank you, Mayor Moore, and for our attendees tonight. For those of you that are also listening, if you would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand icon on your smart device or desktop computer, or you can dial *9 if you're using just your telephone. And at this time, I see no raised hands. Mayor Moore.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. With that, we will move on to our consent calendar. Do we have any interest in any items being pulled from that consent calendar from the council? Not seeing any, I would look for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, this is Vice Mayor Landman. I'd be happy to move the consent calendar.
Second, this is Councilmember Harvey.
Thank you. Ms. Burgess, could we have a roll call on that, please?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman,
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes, thank you very much. Now this is the period of the agenda where we would look for any direction on any future agenda items. Are there any council members wishing to address future agenda items? Councilmember Ford.
Just briefly, I want to recognize that the trial of George Floyd's killer began today in Minneapolis, and that raises for me the issues we've been discussing of policing at its intersection with race in this country, and the fact that those issues are at play in Cotati as well as elsewhere. And I will continue to raise those issues and encourage the council to think about ways that Cotati can play a constructive role in how the country responds to those issues. I think a small town with an excellent police department is the place to start. And the mantra of "we don't have a problem here" isn't good enough. So I'll continue to raise those issues. We have a couple of items outstanding that will come back on a future agenda already. So I'm not asking for anything specific beyond what's already on the docket. But this is a big moment in our country's history, I think, and I want Cotati to be out there playing a role. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Ford. Okay. Now with that, we will move on to a regular agenda item. And the first item is recognition of our former planning commissioner, Steve O'Nines, for his years of service. Mr. Obid, is there something that you wanted to initiate?
I will just briefly say that Steve O'Nines, as is apparent by the materials in the packet, has been involved in the city for a very long time, and recently stepped down from planning commission. And so this item tonight is really just to recognize his years of service with the city, as well as a plaque that in recognition of his service that I believe he has, or maybe will be delivered here shortly. But aside from that, Mayor, it's really back to you to read the resolution and lead this item.
Okay. So the resolution I'd like to read is in recognition for Mr. O'Nines and his years of service. Whereas Stephen O'Nines moved with his family in 1989 to the city of Cotati after retiring from the United States Air Force with the rank of major. And whereas Stephen O'Nines began his long-running commitment to serving Cotati through community service in 1990. And whereas throughout the years, he has served on various boards and committees that planned community events. And whereas Stephen O'Nines served on the Cotati Design Review Committee, helping to promote, maintain, and enhance the visual quality and character of Cotati. And whereas Stephen O'Nines served multiple terms on the Cotati Planning Commission, overseeing community quality and environmental interest to ensure the highest possible quality of life for our residents, our business owners, and our visitors. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Cotati, Stephen O'Nines is hereby commended for his service to the community as a planning commissioner for the City of Cotati. It is hereby certified that the foregoing resolution was duly adopted at a regular meeting of City Council, City of Cotati, held on March 9th, 2021, etc. Steve, that's a formal resolution. I think that is wonderful. I had my own notes I wanted to convey to you. I'd like to honor you for your years of service to the community, starting with the former Community Environmental Commission and continuing on through the Planning Commission. It's people like Steve that make a city a community, from helping out with volunteer events like the previous Pasta Bingo nights that we used to raise money for Kids Days, to contributing to the Cotati General Plan as a planning commission. Steve, thank you for your dedication and to helping make Cotati a place where we can all be proud. We are very grateful for the efforts you have contributed to the community. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to recognize the council members that would like to speak at this moment. Councilmember Ford.
Thank you. Steve, I believe I'm the only current council member who had the pleasure of serving on Planning Commission with you. I got to sit next to you on the dais for years, and it was a great pleasure. I suspect our politics differ a little bit, but you couldn't tell that when we worked great together, and your principles were clear and clearly expressed as you stood up for, in particular, you always were careful to stand up for the rights of applicants and check with applicants to make sure that they had been treated well in their process with the city, and that was an important role to play for people coming before the city trying to do things in our town. You took the job very seriously and did it well. So thank you for that. I thank you for the very enjoyable times serving with you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ford. Vice Mayor Lemon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, Edie, great to see you both. Steve, I'll just add my congratulations to your over 20 years of service, both in the chamber, volunteering for numerous events, many of which I'm sure we didn't capture. Some you've probably forgotten unless you stop and really think back. I'll just say what I'm sure all my colleagues have noticed about you. I always found you always dependable, independent in your thinking, and very courteous in your dealings with your colleagues and most importantly with the public. And I'll add to that this thing that perhaps surprised some people, but I always learned to really value is that absolutely wicked sense of humor that you will pull out from time to time and just let come out. And I will miss working with that. That was wonderful. I do wish this was a different time and we could all be in person with you in the council chambers and present you with a well-deserved plaque. But I'm glad at least to see you tonight and want to wish you from Jan and I our best congratulations to the both of you. Thank you for your service, Steve.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lynn and Councilmember Harvey.
Yes, thank you. Steve, I can remember meeting you, I think it was at one of the Christmas events. And not only did you be very organized in that, you had your whole family there. And I remember your grandkids were helping and everybody was dressed up and Edie helped. And, you know, so community is important to you and your family. And as Vice Mayor Landman stated, I have always loved your sense of humor. I never knew when you were gonna hit us with something funny. And I've really enjoyed working with you over the years. And I guess this means a double retirement for you, not only from working, but also from city service. I hope you'll stay in touch with us, and I wish you all the best in whatever it is that you travel. And I love seeing your stories about all of your adventures. So take care and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. Councilmember Sparks.
As a newcomer, I regret that I haven't had the pleasure of getting to know you and working together with you, but I do want to say that 20 years in a volunteer position is a huge amount of work, and I'm just really, really grateful on behalf of Cotati for you spending so much of your time and energy for Cotati, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sparks. I do want to add, I knew Steve prior to both of us being involved in Cotati civic life, as both Steve and I worked for the state, and I can remember one of the first times meeting him, Steve waving hello and going like this, and I was like, what is that? And then, of course, as you got to know Steve, you went, oh, it's Steve. But Steve, it's been a pleasure in that regard, and I do wish you the best on that. And now I'd like to open it up to citizen comment, if there is any on there, Ms. Burgess.
Mayor Moore, at this time I don't see any raised hands for public comment.
Thank you. I know, Steve, that typically you're not at a loss for words, but I don't know if you'd like to say anything.
Well, first, I'd like to share the plaque with you that we received this afternoon,
Terrific.
and we're very grateful for that. We retired in, as it said, in 1989 from the Air Force. I thought I was an old man and just going to settle down here and putter around until I die. One of the advantages of retiring from the military is that your household goods will be sent anywhere in the world. We looked at going back to England, we looked at the Azores, we looked at Hawaii, even Tucson, Arizona, but we decided on Cotati. I was interviewing with Lockheed at the time down in South Bay. My wife's family has some acreage up in Napa Valley, and she was staying there. She called and said, I found our home. I said, well, good, buy it. She said, well, you ought to come up and see it yourself. So we did, sort of on a wing and a prayer. If I have the chance to say anything without interruption, I would say to those in the seats, some of you angry and dispirited and mumbling, that you have the easy part. It's easy to be on the outside and criticize. I know almost all the members of the council personally. They are honorable people. They're not power mad. They're not striving to put their agenda ahead of the common good of the city. If you wish to take part, do so internally. Start to serve as I did. The Planning Commission was as high as I wanted to go. I didn't want to serve on the city. I don't have the temperament for it. I would have sprung over the table a couple times and bumped people. For you on the council, my only advice is to make sure, as Ben said, that you choose people not entirely because they agree with you or your principles. Democracy, a constitutional republic, can be a noisy, bruising experience sometimes, as you certainly know. But don't be afraid of it. Allow people with other opinions to serve. Allow them to earn your trust. I thank you for this honor. We're not dying or anything. We will be around. And I appreciate all the kind words you've said. Thank you.
Steve, thank you so much. And Cotati is better off for having had you as a community member, and we thank you so much for your service, and I'm sure we will see you around. Thank you so much. Okay. Now we will move on to item 10B, review the proposed water transmission system budget, Sonoma County Water Agency, fiscal year 2021, 2022. I'm assuming this might be Ms. Roselli.
Mayor Moore, if I can interject real quick, I apologize, but for the resolution, can I get a motion in a second?
Oh, my apologies.
This is Councilmember
Move
Ford.
to approve.
I'll second it then.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a vote on that, Ms. Bridges?
Councilmember Harvey?
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks?
Yes.
Councilmember Ford?
Heck yes.
Vice Mayor Landman?
Yes.
Mayor Moore?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Burgess, for that correction there. I guess we're okay to move on to 10B now. Mr. Scott, you'll be initiating this?
Correct. I'll make a quick introduction, and then Lynn Roselli from the Water Agency, Sonoma Water, will make the bulk of the presentation. So Craig Scott, members of council, Craig Scott, Public Works Director, City Engineer. Tonight's item is the proposed Sonoma Water annual budget, and Sonoma Water is our wholesale provider, and the city of Cotati, along with the other water contractors that receive wholesale water from Sonoma Water, meet monthly as a technical advisory committee. Then there's a water advisory committee made up of elected officials as well. The technical advisory committee formed a budget subcommittee made up of a subset of the contractors, the ones from town of Windsor, North Marin Water District, Santa Rosa, City of Sonoma, and myself. And we met on January 20th to look at the first draft that Ms. Roselli presented. And Ms. Roselli will have, she has a slide in the presentation, so I won't belabor the point, but basically the first pass was 6.56% proposed increase, and based on comments from the subcommittee, that was taken back, and she sharpened the pencils over there, talked to capital project managers and other staff there at Sonoma Water, and came back with an increase proposed of 3.47%. And one of the input that the subcommittee had was to recognize the hardships during this pandemic of our customers, and so we really wanted to see something much lower than the initial 6.5%. And good news, they were able, the water agency was able to do that. So we met again on the 28th and looked at the budget that you see before you. The city and Petaluma and Runner Park are on the Petaluma Aqueduct. So when you're looking at the budget, that's the column that pertains to us. And there is a capital charge on there. And the three of us, Petaluma, Runner Park, and myself, came to an agreement to reduce the capital reserve charge from $27 to $20. And that had an effect of almost 1% decrease in the rates. Then, just as the staff report says, the TAC, Technical Advisory Committee meeting on March 1st was presented with the budget, draft budget, unanimously recommended the budget for consideration by the WAC. At this point, between March 1st and the WAC meeting on April 5th, the respective councils of the contractors are being presented with the budget and providing an opportunity to advise their WAC member, in our case, Susan Harvey, on voting on the budget at the April 5th meeting. At this point, I'd like to hand it over to Ms. Lynn Roselli, and Lauren, I think her preference is for you to advance the slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Can you hear me? Yes, great, thank you. So I am Lynn Roselli, Administrative Services Division Manager for Sonoma Water. I'm happy to present the 21-22 proposed budget and rates for the water transmission system. Our fiscal year runs from July to June. Next slide, please. For those of you that are not as familiar with what Sonoma Water's enterprises are, they include water supply, water transmission, flood protection for 75 miles of streams and creeks, 8 wastewater treatment plants, and an energy and sustainability program that helped us achieve carbon-free water in 2015. Next. So today we will be talking only about the water transmission system. The revenues that we receive for the water transmission system are unique to the water transmission system. They cannot be used in any other enterprise. Likewise, the water transmission system doesn't receive revenue from any of the other enterprises as well. And this is a kind of a 10,000 foot level map of the water transmission system. In the upper left-hand corner is the Mirabel-Wohler collection wells or production wells on the Russian River. And then we have the Santa Rosa Aqueduct, the Petaluma Aqueduct down to the lower left there, and the Sonoma Aqueduct off to the right. And as Mr. Scott mentioned, you are on the Petaluma Aqueduct. And we generate a rate and a budget for each one of the aqueducts. and the customers on that aqueduct are responsible for paying that budget and that rate. Next slide, please. As Mr. Scott mentioned, we engaged in a transparent and collaborative process with the water contractors. We presented our first draft budget to the Technical Advisory Budget Subcommittee in mid-January and had discussions in January and February with them. We took their input, we took it seriously, we made some adjustments, we heard them, and I appreciate Mr. Scott's participation in that budget subcommittee. The Technical Advisory Committee voted on the budget to move it forward to the WAC. That was March 1st. I present to City and Town Councils and Water District Boards in the month of March. The Water Advisory Committee votes on April 5th, and then we take it to our board for adoption on April 20th. Next slide, please. So we develop a budget for these functions: operations and maintenance, and then what we call the sub-funds. We have 5 capital funds and then a whole series of debt service funds. Under the sub-funds, I just want to point out that the Water Management Fund is for the Urban Water Management Plan that is being completed this fiscal year, so there's a very minimal budget next year. We will fund those expenses out of fund balance. The Watershed Planning and Restoration Fund is where the National Marine Fisheries Service biological opinion rests. Whoops, move forward. Where the biological opinion is. There you go. And the biological opinion requires that we do certain mitigation measures for our impact on protected fish and involves the Dry Creek Habitat Enhancement Project. And I'll talk about that in another slide. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start off with talking about the capital projects. We have the capital projects that are listed here that are considered hazard mitigation projects. The first 4 are funded by FEMA. The first one is on the Petaluma Aqueduct, the Eli Booster Pump Station Flood Mitigation Project. And then the next 2 are also projects that customers on the Petaluma Aqueduct would be responsible for paying for because they're common to all water contractors. They're both seismic hazard mitigation projects. And all of these projects will have activities in fiscal year 21-22. There are some other capital projects. Go ahead and next slide, please. Thank you. There are other capital projects shown on this chart. That there's a full list on Roman numeral page 6, or I think PDF page 6 of your packet. Petaluma Aqueduct customers would be responsible for paying for the Mirabel Dam bladder replacement and the Warm Springs Dam hydroturbine retrofit projects. When we add the budget of the hazard mitigation projects together with these other capital projects, we get a total budget for capital projects of $9.7 million. We also have operations and maintenance projects. We have cathodic protection on the Santa Rosa Aqueduct and the Russian River Cotati intertie, and that would directly affect the city of Cotati. You're on the Russian River Cotati intertie. And a number of other maintenance projects, including well pump set replacements, valve replacements, and a tank maintenance program. And then we have a number of studies that we're working on. The first one is the Regional Water Supply Resiliency Study, and that study is in collaboration with all water contractors. The projects and studies and all operations and maintenance, the budget is $30.5 million. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the Watershed Planning and Restoration Subfund includes the biological opinion compliance. It also includes water conservation. These will be 2 of the 4 subfunds that will have activities in fiscal year 21-22. The Dry Creek Habitat Enhancement Phase 4 or Mile 4 of the project is designed, and we anticipate that the Corps will begin construction in fiscal year 21-22. The water contractors are paying a 35% cost share. The Army Corps of Engineers is picking up the other 65% of the cost on that project. And that project will be again occurring next year. And as you know, we're in a dry year, looking very much like a very dry year, our third driest year on record. We're entering into a drought. And so water conservation and messaging is very important. And we have a robust water conservation plan that includes also working with some of the water contractors on helping them with their water conservation programs. So all of the subfunds, the budget for next fiscal year is $11.05 million. Next slide, please. So in comparing expenditures for next fiscal year to this fiscal year, you can see that the total is 56.11 million compared to this year, which is 59.18 million. The biggest difference there is made up by capital projects. You can see that there's almost a $3 million decrease in capital projects. That is in part because of comments we received from the water contractors on the hardships of COVID, the pandemic, and the impact it's having on customers, and the need to look hard at what could wait another year until we can get the economy back up and running. However, at the bottom there, you can see grants, use of fund balance, and bond proceeds. And in fiscal year 2021, we show 16.28 million to offset the $59 million budget. And this year, for next fiscal year, it's 8.49 million. So when you take the net budget for this fiscal year is $43, and the net budget for next fiscal year is $47. And that makes up the difference in that comprises where you will see what the rate increase is because of that net budget. Next slide, please. And this is just a pie chart to show you visually the allocation of costs. Operations and maintenance makes up 54%, capital projects 17%, the biological opinion compliance and water conservation make up 20%, debt service makes up 9%, and then we have 8.5 million offsetting grants, bonds, and use of fund balance. Next slide. So we've been talking about the budget. Now I'm going to move into talking about the rate setting calculation, how we get from the budget to the rates. The rates are established by the restructured agreement for water supply, which is the document signed by all of the water contractors in Sonoma Water in 2006. And it specifies how we make this calculation. And the calculation takes the cost of operations and maintenance and divides by the cost of water sold. And as you can see here, the math shows how that calculation works. We have to take the lesser of the 3-year annual average water deliveries or the last 12 months of deliveries. And as you can see here, the deliveries are 46,095 acre feet for next year's budget. And we get the rate per acre foot. And as you can see here, as deliveries go up, your rate increase will go down. And as deliveries go down, your rate increase will go up. So it's very sensitive to water deliveries. We're expecting a dry year. In drought years, we have had deliveries on the order of 42 to 44,000 acre feet, which would result in, and I believe that this 46,095 acre feet has a revenue budget of approximately 47.4 million with expenditures of 47 million. So if we fall much below this 46,000 acre feet, we may have a bit of a revenue shortfall and we'll have to dig further into fund balance. Next slide, please. So this is, we wanted to show you a comparison of our rate to other wholesale water contractors. Our rate is on the far left there, and it's the $1,000 per acre foot. Zone 7 and San Francisco Public Utilities are not raising their rates next fiscal year, but Zone 7 indicated that they would have a 6.7% rate increase the subsequent year. And Santa Clara Valley Water District indicated that their rate increase for this coming fiscal year, next fiscal year, is going to be 9.8%. Contra Costa's rate increase is 3.72%, and the year after that is going to be 3.75%. So that just gives you an example of the different rate increases for different water wholesalers in the Bay Area. Next slide, please. So here is the breakdown of the rate, and as Craig Scott mentioned, you're on the Petaluma Aqueduct. It's 46,095 acre feet for deliveries on all 3 aqueducts, and that is how the rate is calculated. And the discretionary charge that Mr. Scott was mentioning is about 3/4 of the way down the sheet there on the left. It shows the capital charge to build fund balance for future projects. It also acts as a rate stabilization tool, and the contractors on the Petaluma Aqueduct agreed that for this draft that they would drop the aqueduct capital charge, which was $27 this fiscal year, to $20 next fiscal year, to bring the rate increase down further, so that it would be a 3.47% rate increase. Next slide, please. So I wanted to go over some of the budget and rate reduction measures that we implemented. We heard from the water contractors that customers are having difficulty paying not only rent but also utilities, yet you still have to provide them with water. We understand the hardship, and the pandemic has been an economic hardship in so many ways. So we were able to reduce our rate increase from 6.56 to 4.1, and then the water contractors were able to get that rate increase down to 3.47% by reducing their capital charge. So we realized savings of approximately 1.3 million. Most of that savings came in the capital projects area. We also increased the use of fund balance. We reduced the water management or urban water management planning sub-fund rate to 0. We will fund whatever expenses we have next year with fund balance. We decreased labor costs in water conservation to be more realistic as to what we thought we would actually incur. And we also just looked at in general that the rate increase on average is approximately 65 cents per household per month. And just to give some perspective, we understand that you can't, if you don't have a job, you're not being able to pay your rent, and you can't pay your utility bill. 65 cents a month is still an increase of 65 cents per month is still a hardship. But we do have a rescue bill that is out, and hopefully that will begin to help. Or we almost have a rescue bill approved by Congress, and hopefully that will start to begin a turnaround and make a difference for our customers and for our water contractors. And next slide, please. So the next steps are, again, the Technical Advisory Committee approved moving this budget and rates forward to the Water Advisory Committee. I'm making presentations in the month of March. April 5th is the Water Advisory Committee meeting and vote, and then it is adopted by our board on April 20th. And with that, I am happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Roselli. Mr. Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add to that at this time?
I did not.
Thank you very much. It looks like we do have some questions from the council. Vice Mayor Landman?
Councilmember Harvey, if you have something you want to go first with, I'd be happy to wait. This is your...
No, I'll go ahead and ask your question. I have some comments.
Okay, good. Well, first of all, a quick comment just to kick it off. I want to thank very much Ms. Roselli, the responsiveness of Sonoma Water to this year. That's really greatly appreciated, and I think it's been indicative of what we've seen from the agency for years now. And I can tell you certainly, Councilmember Harvey and I certainly appreciate that, going back a long ways doing these when Mr. Bader used to come visit us. And definitely I'd like to thank that budget subcommittee too. You guys, your actions were thoughtful and on point, I think, for what the public needs right now. So just a simple question. So we temporarily are paying in roughly a third less this year to our capital reserve charge. I just wanted a rough idea, if we could, of where's that reserve currently sitting, because we've had it in place for some years now as a smoothing device to smooth over rate increases and different capital replacement projects a bit. And how is its health, if you will, compared to historic?
The health of the Petaluma Aqueduct Capital Fund is, give me one moment here and I can give you a good
Where's
number.
that page?
Yeah,
you can
where
be
is that
very
page?
with that.
Which page is that?
You would probably see it on the last page. Let's see if I can get there. Of the package. Yep. So the Petaluma Aqueduct Capital Fund is at, after this coming fiscal year, your fund balance will be $7 million. Almost $7 million. So that's on PDF page 64.
Packet page 129.
Okay, and I'm not on that page just yet. I'm shuffling. How does that hold up to the last, say, half decade roughly? Are we in a comfortable place?
You have been building fund balance in that fund fairly consistently. You're adding approximately, depending on water deliveries, of course, anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 a year to that fund. It's important to build up fund balance in that fund for aqueduct projects going forward. And there's likely to be more as the years go on. The aqueduct itself is 50 years old. It's still in pretty good shape. We've done some inspections and some assessments. There are further assessments to do, but there will certainly be needs for that fund balance going forward. And there are a few projects on the Petaluma Aqueduct that will begin to dip into that amount. So we'll use those funds for capital projects.
Well, thank you for that. I'll say again, I appreciate the prescience of both the working group and certainly the agency for coming around to this mechanism and way of working. And I think this year just shows the value. Here we are continuing to build value in this reserve, and yet not only can we use this as a tool to smooth costs over years, to kind of blunt shock sometimes when a few projects just line up in 1 year, but also it's a tool that can be used in a situation like this, and yet it's still sitting in reserve, ready to go in case we have some surprises with our half-century-old aqueduct. Which concerned me because you mentioned how old it was, and I realized I was 67. So I'm hoping I hold up better than the aqueduct. But thank you for that. That was helpful.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lemon. Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you. If I'm reading it correctly, it looks like this was the third lowest rate increase in the last 20 years. So I want to say thank you, because I think that's just so important during this really difficult year. I just had a question for my own information. I was wondering if you could explain a little bit more about what the decreased labor cost in water conservation is from, and what the impacts of that will be. Thank you.
I don't believe there will be a significant impact. I think that in sitting down with Paul Piazza, who is in charge of that water conservation fund, it was his first year developing the budget. And I sat down with him and reviewed his budget with him, and we found that we could find some cost savings based on his level of staffing. And so we were able to make some cuts there. It won't affect delivery of programs, and it's important in a drought year that we have a robust water conservation program moving forward, and we don't believe that there will be any impact to delivery of the program or the services because of that reduction.
Thank you, Ms. Bozelli. Was that it? Councilmember Sparks?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harvey, this is your bailiwick, I believe.
You think? First of all, I want to thank Lynn. Lynn has been with us for a while. I agree with Vice Mayor Landman. We had some very rough early years on this, and it's just so refreshing to be able to have a partnership with the water agency. And so these are much smoother, and there's a lot more discussion and working back and forth, because we are responsible to our constituents to make sure that we do everything we can to bring them quality water, but at a price that makes sense and is reasonable. And I really appreciate all Lynn's work in that, because she works really hard with us to make sure that happens. And I bet you're so glad this year that rather than having to drive all over the place to go to all these meetings, that you're able to sit and attend all those meetings. I want to add on to what Vice Mayor Landman said too about the capital projects. I think it's really so important that, that whole change in how we do that and build up fund balances so that we can look to the future knowing that we are going to have some very large expenditures, and to be able to save up for them and to be able to fund them when they become due, rather than always having to look at financing things. And I think that that's been very prudent for us, as well as was pointed out in being able to, smooth out some of the rate increases. I just would like to highlight that one of the important things that we will have this year and we will lean on a lot is the Water Savings Partnership. I think probably some of the reason that we are able to have a little savings there is the partnership has been going now for quite a few years, and we have a lot of learnings that have happened and a lot of stuff that that whole group in water conservation has been able to use and reuse. So I think that that is representative of the water agency staff to be able to kind of use and reuse things, you know, rather than creating new things every year. So kudos to them for being able to do that. And for our new council members, I just want to highlight that Lynn had put some slides in there about Dry Creek and Mirabel, and if opportunities arise when this pandemic is over, that they have tours of those. It is well worth your time to go see Mirabel as well as Dry Creek. The work that they've done at Dry Creek is just really incredible. And Lynn, I remember in my early days, you showing us this large set of binders of expense that we would have to do if we did not do Dry Creek. And I can't remember what the number was, but it was a huge number. So the work that we've been able to do and accomplish in Dry Creek, to be able to not have to have a pipeline that would be probably ugly and probably very, and for sure really expensive. I think it's wonderful. And just to see that work and see how fruitful it has been, and it really blends in with everything that's out there in Dry Creek. It is pretty amazing. So I had quite a few questions, as you guys may imagine, because I do go through, I do read these pages, and I want to say that I really appreciate Craig and Lynn responding to those questions. And Lynn, thank you for those answers again. They were right on. It makes me feel better. I also appreciate, I noticed on a lot of them that you put a page in there with notes by account what they were. So that was always very helpful, because then I can tie back to those things. So anyways, I appreciate all this and wait for my direction.
Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. I would like to thank Lynn Roselli and the Sonoma County Water Agency for the years of leveling and fiscally prudent, responsible management of the Sonoma County Water Agency. I think it's really helped. It shows, you know, collaboration. So I think that's wonderful. Councilmember Harvey, did you have another question, or did you just still have your hand up?
I just have to put my hand down.
Okay.
Let me put my hand down.
Okay.
There we go.
Since this is an action item, I am going to open it up for public comment. Ms. Burgess, do we have anybody that's interested in commenting on this?
Mayor Moore, it appears that there is no public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. Well, with that, I would certainly entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, this is the Vice Mayor. I'd like to move that we provide direction to our City Water Advisory Committee member to endorse the proposed Sonoma County Water Agency fiscal year 2021-22 water transmission system budget.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you very much. Ms. Burgess, if you would kindly do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Harvey?
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks? Councilmember Ford?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman?
Yes.
Mayor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Burgess. And for the new council members, if you haven't picked it up yet, you have to be quick with Councilmember Harvey here. Okay, with that, we will move on to our next agenda item. And that is the item 10C, proposed Quick Strike Street Grant application. And I'm assuming this is Mr. Scott.
It is. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, Craig Scott, Public Works Director, City Engineer. This is one of those fortuitous items where just late last year, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, MTC, that divvies out federal funding in the Bay Area, came upon $50 million that it decided it needed to spend pretty quickly. And pretty quickly is between now and September 2022. So we, that request, that packet is called well, shortly the quick strike, but it's got a longer name than that, and it was given to the SCTA, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, to put out a letter to solicit interest from its member agencies, including Cotati, to submit bicycle and ped friendly projects to go after this funding. So the $50 million, there was a percentage in there, about 7.5%, something like that, for that Sonoma County, just as a general guide, would get, and that turns out to be about $3.6 million. Next slide, please. And SCTA decided to go with the whole theme here is that these are projects that need to be quick to deliver, ready to go. And so SCTA has a framework that's called the One Bay Area Grant. And so for us, OBAG 1 was the downtown project where we paved the downtown and put the crosswalks in all throughout between East Cotati Avenue and Henry. And then OBAG 2, I remember we went up by Sunflower Park and paved a lot of East Cotati Avenue up there from the city limits down to the railway tracks. And so we have used this program before, and it was a 2 or 3 week fire drill to pull this application together. But fortunately for us, we have a design, a bid-ready street project that's on the shelf, because last year we designed a project to do the inner hub streets and the outer named hub streets, as well as West Sierra Avenue. And because of budget uncertainty, we only felt comfortable moving forward with just the named hub streets, Charles, Henry, George, William, so forth. And so we had designed the entire project, so the rest of that project is ready to go. And that seemed to fit the criteria really well for this project. So we're very well positioned for this. Next slide, please. That last, or second to last bullet on the prior slide, sorry, was the city submitted this application to SCTA back on February 19th. And then just last night, the SCTA board had a long meeting, but this was on the agenda, and they deliberated over the 8 applications that they received and went forward with, I believe, 7 of them. It's and the total amount was a little over the target 3.6. It was something over $4 million, but all of the projects were seen as being eligible, certainly, and competitive. So it was interesting to watch that board meeting last night and everybody coming together to promote these bicycle and ped friendly projects. This is an evaluation criteria. So the board voted to move that forward. And so our project is within that group of 7 projects to be sent on to MTC, the Bay Area, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, for their deliberations. And so this is definitely still uncertain what they will do with it, but we remain hopeful. Okay, so the evaluation criteria is listed here. A lot of emphasis on connect and mobility, having community engagement, and of course all of our council meetings are open to the public and solicit community input, as well as our website has the, we get a lot of input from the public, believe it or not, just on street comments, complaints, for slowing traffic, making crosswalks safer, and so forth. So we have this ongoing public outreach process. Be connected to or within a priority development area. This project is. It's completely within the PDA defined by the downtown specific plan area. A little typo there. And or serve a community of concern area. So the area north of Old Redwood Highway and south of East Cotati Avenue is a community of concern, and this project certainly increases mobility for those folks to walk or ride their bike to the Civic Center, to all of the facilities that we have there from the recreation the programs that we have, the sports fields, the basketball courts, the demonstration farm, even walking to the west side of town through the tunnel that's available for the school kids as well. And so we checked that box, address transit connectivity gaps, and then finally ready to go. And so the transit, we do have some language in the application stating that, hey, if you arrive at the Cotati train depot and you've got your bike, you get to Old Redwood Highway and it becomes much less bicycle friendly getting just that short stretch from West Sierra Avenue to the Civic Center. And so this certainly addresses, addresses that criteria. It makes it it makes that last leg of that journey a lot more bicycle friendly. And then lastly, its project is ready to go. And this criteria was taken very seriously. If there were projects that had right of way to acquire or environmental to secure still, then they were not seen as projects that were really ready to go. And there has been comments like, well, September 30th, 2022, that seems like a long way away. But with all of the Caltrans local procedures manual steps that we need to take, months just kind of tick by, they really do. So even if you have a ready project, it does take up some time. Next slide, please. Okay, getting into the project itself. I know I've talked about it a little bit already, but we've got here the inner hub. Remember, we did the outer hub streets last summer. So this is La Plaza and West Sierra all the way from Old Red just past the interchange. The original project had the three-way stop at West School Street and also the Cypress Crossing, but because of heightened public input on that, those pieces have been pulled out, and the contractor is going to be, we're just getting the paperwork done on that. It's received council approval at the last meeting, and we're going to be seeing that constructed really soon. So, but those pieces were part of this original project. Next slide, please. Oh, wait, before we go. So the total project, we're looking at 2.65 million, 150,000 has already been spent on design. And we're looking at requesting $1.25 million for the grant. And we have a very sizable local match, which makes this very attractive to the MTC. We're hoping that does, of 1.4 million. So it's roughly we're over 50% on the funding. Next slide, please. On the funding, I think the federal requirement is something like 11.3% or something. So we're way over that. Okay, So the project features, we have repaving La Plaza and West Sierra. Like I mentioned, it connects it downtown to the Civic Center complex in areas west via the School Street Tunnel. And then I've got some plan sheet snapshots that are coming in the next few slides, which demonstrate what that bullet means. Narrows travel lanes and creates bike lane buffers, and then improves the safety of intersections. So let's just dive right into some of these engineering drawings. So hopefully it doesn't give anybody a headache. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've got the old Redwood Highway on the right, and then this is La Plaza. And so we're just gonna kind of move from east to west down West Sierra Avenue. So you can see the green bike lane paint. What we like to do is when we approach intersections, the green bike lanes get the driver's attention. It makes it safer for bicyclists because it's the traffic, the drivers are just really discouraged from driving in those areas. And then you see the hatched areas just to provide bicyclists a little bit more buffer. And then the enhanced crosswalks there across La Plaza and across West Sierra Avenue. Next slide, please. So a lot is accomplished here with striping, and it's going to be on a brand new street. So this is the next one down, Olaf and Henry Street. Again, you're approaching an intersection, so there's a green bike lane delineation, the buffer. You can see the traffic lanes are narrowed. That is anticipated to slow traffic down. And we hope to go ahead and do a speed survey after this, and we'll see how drivers react to this narrowing of the lanes. And then that's all the herringbone crosswalk that we've been seeing is becoming our trademark in the downtown area. So it really expands the downtown presence or feel down West Sierra Avenue. And next slide, please. And then this one is the right there at the corner, City Hall there and West School Street. And so we've got the herringbone crosswalks. I mean, I'm just sounding like a broken record, but as we march down the street, we're seeing how this is applied all the way down West Sierra. And you just get a lot more comfort as a bicyclist to have that buffer. I know it's just striping, but you just have that distance between you and the cars. And the public input, so that we've received over the last few years, it's just complaints that drivers tend to just run this stop sign. And so at this intersection in particular, we're going to make sure that the stopping signs have the flashing lights on them, and we're looking into putting the pedestrian level lighted bollards, one on each corner. And so those are being used by other cities very successfully. It not only provides light for the pedestrians so they're not tripping, so they can see where they're going at night, but also for drivers, it brings their eyes down to the pedestrian level and lights up those pedestrians. So we're looking to, I don't think it's on the drawings right now. It's something that came in and out of the design during the course of design. And I think now we're really encouraged, I think, supportive of putting those in. Next slide, please. So those are the design drawings. I'll just give you a feel for what features are going to be on this project. Not only will it give all of those bike ped friendly features, but these are streets that are in pretty poor shape, and we're going to almost rebuild them with this project, similarly to what we did to the named hub streets. Okay, so the timeline, now after yesterday's SCTA board meeting, SCTA will package these projects up and submit them to MTC by the end of this month. And then MTC will deliberate over those, and we will know in June if our project is a go for funding. And then we can, the city can approach Caltrans local Division of Local Assistance and start the process of doing preliminary environmental studies and submitting the plans to them to get the eventually to get the E76 form, which is the okay to construct. I mentioned environmental studies, and that sounds daunting. We have already had our consultant look through what the CEQA and NEPA aspects of this project are, and they believe that this project, because it's in an existing roadway, is exempt from both NEPA and CEQA. So we'll probably have to do some environmental studies, but it's not a full NEPA or CEQA document that we'll have to prepare. And then following that, once we have the preliminary environmental studies and PS&E or the environmental, or I'm sorry, the engineering documents, we'll make that submittal to Caltrans to request a notice, an approval, final approval from them, like, yes, you can go ahead and construct this. And so we would submit that in November of this year, and then in January, we would hope to obtain that notice to construct. And we would then at that point be able to go out to bid the document, bid the project, and we would have, hopefully, that's really good timing to get good bids in the spring and then build this in the spring and summer of 2022. And that gets us well ahead of having the funds obligated by September 30th, 2022. We're really getting the funds obligated in January of 22. So we're going to be anticipating to be ahead, but there is some float in there as well. Next slide, please. This is the final slide. Okay, so this is just the recommendation. We're looking to, we're just following the OBAG procedure, which requires the governing board of the city council to support this project and support submitting the project application to MTC, and also there's the name of it, the Safe and Seamless Mobility Quick Strike Program. That's that's the whole name of the program, and also committing matching funds and stating that, hey, we're assuring that we're good for completing this project. So they need all of that in a resolution blessed by the council. One thing that another factor that works in our favor, OBAG 1 and OBAG 2, these federalized projects, the city has performed well in the past. Caltrans has this infamous spreadsheet that they keep, and it lists all of the inactive projects. So if you have not sent in an invoice within a 6-month period, you put on this list. That's called the inactive list, and it's basically giving yourself the black eye, really, and you're endeavoring to try to get off this list. And so we have been very fortunate not to be there for our projects, and that actually reflected well on us for this application. So that concludes the presentation, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. We have any questions from the council. Councilmember Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Craig, for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. On the Caltrans, on moving forward with starting those approvals, why wouldn't we start that right now, since this was a project that we kind of already is next in line? Why would we wait until June or July to do that?
I think it's because once you set up the first step, which is the in-office, which it's a field review, but now it's in their office, and now it's going to be virtual. Caltrans wants to know that you have the funds secure. You know, it's going to be hard to get their attention if you say, well, we're going to start this process and spend a lot of your time on this, but, you know, we haven't secured the funding yet. So that's kind of a hard sell for them. What we have done is we've taken their forms and filled them all out, and we're ready to just give them a call and say, hey, we're ready for that in-office field review meeting today, and we're ready to go. So I think we've taken it as far as we could, but it's just hard to get them to dedicate their time, and they're very busy people, as we all are, to something that we might not move forward with.
Yeah, and I would add too that Caltrans local assistance will not pay attention to you until you have it's either MTC or maybe in this case the California Transportation Commission approval. They have a database of federally funded projects, and until it shows up on that database, you go right to voicemail.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good to know, because I just didn't know why, since it's kind of our next project in line, why we wouldn't just go ahead and start that, but thank you for that. And then I would just also like to chime in the importance of improving pedestrian safety at West Sierra and East School. I mean, I'm seeing more and more people cross there, and as you pointed out, people run that stop sign a lot. And with the Folletti Ranch being there, there's a lot more families with children crossing those crosswalks. And so whatever we can do for pedestrian safety at those crossings, you know, be it, you know, the flashing light, whatever, we really need to make that intersection there safe, so people want to go over and cross to visit the Folletti Ranch. So that's just my plug for getting that as safe as we can make it and getting that in the project, whatever the project is. So those are my only questions, Ram.
Thank you, Councilmember
Thank you.
Harvey. Thank you. Councilmember Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Craig, just a couple of questions to make sure I'm clear on things. I appreciate the green bicycle refuge at the front of the stoplight that's shown in the drawings on West Sierra at Old Red. And we have a couple of lights in town that don't sense bicycles, I can tell you from experience. How does that work at a place like that? Are they photos sent? You know, do they use a camera to sense, or how's it going to work if a bicycle comes up there and there's no car to trip the light for him?
We have been moving to cameras and away from the traffic loops underneath the pavement, and so those traffic loops don't pick up. But those traffic loops do pick up bicycles, but in the design, that there has to be like a little mini loop in the bike lane piece of it, and I'm not certain that we have that on our intersections, but we have been moving to the video cameras. I think we just got approval to put video cameras at that intersection on Old Redwood Highway and West Sierra Avenue, East Cotati Avenue, and so that's a lot easier to just pick up bicycles as well as, of course, the vehicles.
Great, thanks. Along the length of the street, the curbs don't move. We're just talking about modifying within the existing width, except for maybe at intersection and change some curb cuts.
Correct.
Okay.
There are some. I think there is a bulb out that we have, but for the most part, the curb and gutter are left untouched.
Okay. And finally, I just want to echo Councilmember Harvey that the intersection of the East School is particularly troublesome at night. So I like to talk about the pedestrian level lighting there. I've been crossing in that crosswalk and had cars they just can't see me. Even when they do stop, they can't see me because it's so poorly lit. And so that's partly an issue of streetlights. It's partly an issue there's no pedestrian lighting. So I encourage that pedestrian lighting you were talking about at that intersection. Thanks. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Ford. Councilmember Hari, did you have another question or no?
If I'm allowed, please, Mr.
Absolutely.
Mayor.
Sure.
So, and Ben might even be able to answer this. I like the green striping. I agree with Craig that it really does bring the attention to people driving in cars. I was curious as to whether there has been, since it's not real new, but it's relatively new, do we have any data on how effective those are? I was just curious as to whether any studies or data is available on how effective that is.
That's a really good question, and I think the answer is going to be in the the process of completing the local road safety plan, because in that plan, which just got kickstarted last month and is going to go on for the next 2 or 3 months, they do look at countermeasures at intersections to make it safer for bikes and pedestrians, and of course avoid collisions. So I would venture to guess that each of those countermeasures has some data behind it as to what percentage safer, what effect it has on safety, and certainly the green bike paint is one of the countermeasures. It's going to be listed there. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and research that.
That'd be awesome. I just was curious. I mean, for me, when I drive, it does make me feel like, well, that's the bike's lane and this is my lane, but I just hadn't heard of, any kind of data that says, yeah, that's really a lot safer, a little safer, I don't know how to couch that, but that would be awesome if you could look into that.
Good question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly. Ben, you had a follow-up or?
Yeah, I was just going to state briefly, my information is kind of old from when I was on the countywide bike pedestrian advisory committee about 10 years ago. But at that time, there were a lot of studies being done because it was moving into urban areas a lot. And it was a pretty significant improvement in bike safety to have those green lanes. And what's new in our city in this drawing is the bike refuge at the head of the traffic lane coming up to the light. So it's a place where if a bike's turning left, they don't have to merge into the traffic lane with the cars leading up to the light. They come up to the light in the bike lane, and then there's a, 10 or 15 foot deep green area where they can move over into the left turn lane and go first when the left turn lane hits. So I think those are both significant improvements.
Thank you. Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. I have a confession, which is that when I first moved to Cotati, I almost ran that stop sign at East Full Street. And I remember vividly slamming on my brakes, being like, oh crap, there's a stop sign here. And I just didn't see it. And I don't know why I didn't see it, but I'm wondering if do you know why that stop sign seems to be invisible to people? It's just something about the way you approach it. I don't know what it is. And is there anything in the plan to fix whatever is causing it to be so invisible?
We have, I think, always struggled to deal with drivers on West Sierra Avenue because I think coming from Stony Point and then making their way past 101 into town, we're just trying to get people to slow down. I don't know what it is about that section of street that's a straightaway, maybe, or people are just hurry.
Promise I wasn't speeding. And that
Well, no, I'm
just didn't see
trying to be sensitive about this, but not doing a very good job. We put the speed feedback sign right there at the bus stop by the highway, the interchange, and I think that intersection is just nondescript. It's just a straightaway, and it's hard to see East School Street coming out from that side. So with the improvements that we're talking about, narrowing the lanes, will just slow drivers down. And then with the herringbone, crosswalks are going to be very distinctive. And then the stop signs are going to have the lights on them. So at night, it's very, very apparent that you're coming upon a stop sign. And then of course, with the bollard lights, it's going to be all lit up. And so we're hoping that's going to be a pretty dramatic difference from what it is today. I think the stop signs today are just very nondescript, and they're not attention grabbing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would concur with you, Councilmember Sparks. I've been complaining and whining about that intersection for years and the lack of lighting on that corner. Right, Mr. Obid? So I really look forward to this. I do have a question though. If, in light of the fact that we had scaled back in our traffic master plan and in light of the budget last year and scaled it back, is there anything that would preclude us to go ahead and start on this? And then if we get the quick strike grant, great. If we don't, we still are moving forward on this?
Caltrans is very picky about those things. We have to provide them the bid document. After all of the months and months of deliberating with them over the project details, they even want us to submit the project bid documents before we bid it, put it out to bid. And so I've heard horror stories where you've got this project, you've gotten through all the hard work of getting this grant funded, and then there's some water service line repairs that need to be done just outside the project area. Hey, we've got the paving truck here, let's just pave, cut back out of there and put permanent asphalt there. And it just causes all sorts of hurt for the project, because you're outside of the project area and you've got the money all mixed together now. And so I think just they're very finicky, that unless you followed their procedure to a T, they're not going to come on board in the middle of it and get on board with that. They need to be on board from the very beginning. And Damien, I just want to ask if that's been your experience as well.
Yeah, once you federalize a project, you really don't want to mess with it, because if you did like part of the project within the federal project area, you'd be trying to unravel that for years probably with Caltrans. So I think to get to your question though, Mayor, I think the approach that we would take is waiting until May, and then we'll have we think we're going to get funded at some level. We just don't know the exact amount yet once it comes out of MTC and potentially the Transportation Commission. But it's better to hold until May, about May, and then find out what that exact amount is, and then we just move forward as quickly as we can with Caltrans on that particular project, and then in parallel we can move forward on other non-federalized projects outside of that project area. It's I think the most efficient way to go about it.
Thank you. That kind of answers my question. So if we don't want to mess with that, we could go ahead and look at one of the other components that we were looking at on our street pavement projects.
Correct.
Councilmember Harvey, you had another question?
Please, if you will indulge me.
Absolutely.
We talked about the possibility of there being red flashing light there at West Sierra and East School. Did I understand that correctly, Mr. Scott?
Yes.
So that's what I thought I heard. My concern there is that there is a home right there. Have we had any issues with the red flashing lights with homes being right there? I was trying to remember where some of the other ones were, and I just can't picture any right next to a home like that.
We've installed those on LaSalle, East Cotati Avenue in LaSalle, and over there on Old Red and William George. And so we'd have to be very sensitive to shielding, installing a shield with that light.
Okay.
It directions it to the driver and shields, light from kind of straying into the home.
Okay. Oh, good, because I know there's a house like right there, and I just don't want to cause another problem for, a homeowner, because we've made it safer for them to cross the street, but now they have a flashing light all the time at night. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, so if we don't have any further questions from the council for Mr. Scott, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. And just as a reminder to our attendees, if you just use your raise hand icon or dial *9 with your telephone. And there is no public comment.
Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate the efforts put forth on that. Quick strike, I think that's great, and that we were able to try to accommodate that and take advantage of those funds. And if there's no further comment on that, I would certainly entertain a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, if I might,
Yes.
before we go to making a motion, I would love to make a motion on this, but first I wanted to have a few comments, if I might. You can imagine having a packet item that describes this wonderful project that would only work if we were able to pass this at SCTA the day before, gave me, as your SCTA representative, some concerns leading up to the meeting. And I'm really happy to report you might expect that typically when you have a pot of money, roughly $4 million, and you have 9 cities in the county that get to compete for that it is kind of a food fight. And historically, and that's a kind way to put it, and historically, it has been in years past. But I was in a very comfortable position that I do want to talk about for a second because it speaks well to this city. I didn't have to argue. We had a lot of discussion on how to move forward things. I'll touch on that later. But I didn't have to argue or defend our project whatsoever, even though it takes up over a quarter roughly of that budget. And that's because, as mentioned, that project hit all requirements. And the reason we were able to have a project like that ready to go is because we were in the position to have a staff that was able to do excellent work like that. One thing I will mention, Mr. Scott mentioned Cotati has no inactive projects on MTC's list. That's because, thanks to the public support, we have the ability to put together a crew here has built a reputation, a history, and be able to deliver on federal grants like this, which is a difficult thing to do. It certainly is a challenge, as you can tell just from the discussion. So all these things came together because of public support that allowed us to build this organization and staff to do this. So I want to give credit to our staff who were able to turn this around. It was mentioned in the beginning by the mayor of Santa Rosa what a challenge this is for smaller cities to respond quickly to something like this. And he was absolutely 100% correct in that. So I want to give the credit to the fact the staff we have here who were able to do that successfully. One other thing I should mention that I think speaks well to what we've built here is that prior to this, I did have a discussion with the city manager before the meeting, because it occurred to me we had one city that was initially cut out that had a good project that was close. We were a little outside that $4 million budget. And I knew there might be an interest of trying to wrap it in, and I wanted to work in a way atypical to what we've done historically, more of a constructive manner where we all work together to get as many good projects across the line. And I did inquire to see if it would be possible for us to take a small reduction in what we were asking for, if it would be helpful in getting another city across the line. And after some research, even though it looked like it would be difficult, there was a willingness, if it would lead to better things for everybody in our group at SCTA, all the cities in the county and the county, there was a willingness to do that. And I think that's something the public should be aware of. And I will mention that Mayor Giudice of Rohnert Park, independently and on his own, rose up with the same suggestion and clearly had talked to his staff about this. Now, the two of us were unable to make it work quite like that this time, but I think that's an important thing because right now, this time, our city was sitting in a wonderful position. Next time, perhaps we're not. If we can build a culture where we're helping each other do this, what a much better place. So I'll just wrap my comments up by saying the result of the time and effort of public support and council work over this decade, we're in a position where we competed efficiently in this grant and we're bringing back well over $1 million to this public and a very good safety project that will make a larger difference, I think, for this community. So that's a good thing to recognize. So with that, I appreciate your forbearance on that, and I would be happy to move a resolution supporting the proposed downtown and civic center connectivity and safety project and authorizing the filling of an application for funding under the Safe and Seamless Mobility Quick Strike Program and committing any necessary matching funds and stating assurance to complete the proposed project.
I would second that motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second, and I apologize, Vice Mayor Lemon, I did not see your hand up, and appreciate the input regarding the SCTA. So we do have a motion and a second. If we can have a roll call vote on that, Ms. Burgess?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes, thank you so much. And very nice work, Mr. Scott. I appreciate that, and all the staff that have worked on that. It's nice that we can actually jump on something quickly. So, that is it for our regular agenda items. We would now move on to our city manager's report. Mr. Obid, you are on.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. All right, so I'll just start with COVID. A lot of this probably everyone knows, but I will touch on some things that might be news to people. So the county vaccination program as of Monday is officially transitioned to the state contractor, which is Blue Shield. The actual transition is going to take several weeks probably. It's not a light switch type thing, but Blue Shield as a state contractor is taking over the programs in all the counties in the state of California, and starting in Sonoma County this week. So we're currently still in phase 1B, tier 1, and that's 65 and over. Ag and food manufacturing workers are also eligible. Vaccination rates have slowed over the past week, but hopefully we'll see the pace pick back up, particularly with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which only requires a single dose, and so would conceivably go faster if they can produce the supply. We are, in terms of color tiers, we're still currently in purple due to the case rate per 100,000 people in the county, and we're right around 8.7 or so, and we need to be at or below 7 using the current thresholds. As things stand right now, the county continues to slowly decrease in case rate, but what's probably going to happen first is we're likely going to move to red once the state changes the thresholds, which is expected to occur once we've reached 2 million people vaccinated in underserved populations throughout the state. It was about 1.6 million a couple weeks ago. So I imagine we're getting close to 2 million here in the very near future. And once that happens, the state will change the threshold to 10, I believe, which means we would jump to red. Positivity rates remain low, below red. The positivity rate, if that were the only factor, we are in the orange range in the current criteria. We only have one 20 by 60 tent remaining, but it's likely that we've installed tents for everyone that wants one. The most recent one being the one at Flagship, and they're busily using it. I see that most of the tents are actively being used. That's great to see. At a federal level, there's the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that has now cleared both the House and Senate, and the two versions are being reconciled currently. It's expecting that the final version will be voted on as soon as this weekend, with it going to the president in the next several weeks for signature. So if this gets approved, this amount of funding more than doubles the amounts previously approved by Congress and should result in significant relief funding for families and small businesses. On the project side of things, the West Sierra Avenue Safety Project contract that Craig touched on, the contract documents are being processed right now. Kickoff meeting is expected in the next 2 weeks. Construction commencing in early April. This is, of course, the project to install the three-way stop at the intersection of West Sierra and East School. Or, I'm sorry, it's West Sierra and West School Street, and crosswalk improvements at West Sierra Avenue and Cypress. Also, we've been working on the community center re-roof project, including, and I could say it also includes window replacement in the Civic Center. So the bid documents are nearly complete, and the projects expect to be ready to bid next month, with construction potentially starting in the May timeframe. So you'll be seeing that back here at council in the not too distant future. And on the topic of street work, so the street preservation project, I mean, as you know, we're doing the streets that are in worse condition. We are working on rebuilding those roads and getting them up to a good level of repair. At the same time, we're maintaining the streets that are in good condition from falling into disrepair. So it's kind of, you know, fixing the plates while you're keeping the other one spinning. And that maintenance project is in the Bird section off of Myrtle, and it's expected to be ready to bid this month, actually, with an award in April, and construction would begin as soon as mid-May. And sort of concurrent with all this, we are looking at, we're putting together draft construction design agreements for the School Street project, which is the next in line after the West Sierra La Plaza, sort of in the pavement master plan. I'm not sure about timing at this point. It might even be concurrent at this point, but the design is going to get going on that, as well as some design for some new federally eligible roadways, so that we're ready for any federal grants that might become available. And then lastly, on roads, the local road safety plan effort has started, and the city's collision history is being analyzed currently. That website that I think we mentioned at the last meeting that was draft is now live, and so the city will be using social media and our website to direct people to it, to start looking at that website and providing comments about areas of the city that they want to see improvements at. The website describes the plan, presents collision histories on the map, and provides a map for the public to pin any locations on the street network where they have safety concerns, as well as leave notes of what those concerns are. We talked a little bit about this earlier too with water, but this year is the, at least at this point in time, is the third driest year on record, and the city is promoting that it's a dry year, Save Water With Us campaign through the Water Saving Partnership. So both the Potter Valley project, which is the Eel River fed by Lake Pillsbury, and the upper Russian River areas have been designated as being critical dry years, and the lower Russian River is designated as being one step less than a dry water year. So with these designations, the Water Agency is petitioned the state water resources, Department of Water Resources, for reducing reservoir discharges to conserve water stored in the lakes in Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma. And despite these measures and the current rainfall levels in these reservoir capacities are lower than they were during the last drought, which was in 2013, 2014. So obviously it's raining tonight. Hopefully we get a lot more rain, and it doesn't turn out to be as bad of a year as at least it stands today, if things stay as they are. Also at the TAC meeting, Sonoma Water reported that fish counts in the Russian River and tributaries, at least this year, have been the lowest since records were started in the year 2000. And this is attributed to the dry year, and the low fish counts are being experienced all along California's coast. Oftentimes the fish need I'm certainly no fish expert, but what I typically hear is that it takes significant rainfall to get a lot of flow going out through the estuaries to really bring the fish in. The anadromous fish, such as the steelhead and salmon fish. So Community development, so work continues on the cottage ordinance and objective design guidelines for housing. The cottage ordinance is scheduled for formal review by the Planning Commission, as well as an initial review, initial public review of the housing objective design guidelines. And both are currently scheduled for the March 15th Planning Commission meeting, which is right around the corner. And also right around the corner, we have strategic planning meeting next week, and then the budget workshops in the following months. So you can check the city calendar online to participate in these meetings and learn more about the city budget process. And the budget workshop next week is on the 16th at, it'll be over Zoom, and that of course is a public meeting. The city is also going to be hosting one of several drop-off sites in Sonoma County sponsored by the DEA, and the drop-off day will be Saturday, April 24th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the community center, using the drive-through as a drop-off. And so we're collecting tablets, capsules, patches. These are prescription or non-prescription over-the-counter tablets, capsules, patches, and other solid forms of prescription drugs. Liquids, including intravenous solutions, syringes, and other sharps. Any illegal drugs will not be accepted. So no liquids, no syringes and sharps, and no illegal drugs at this drop-off, please. And the program does also accept vaping devices and the cartridges, provided the lithium batteries are removed first. On switching gears totally on roosters. So we have been getting, a number of complaints from neighbors next to Walgreens regarding the noise of the roosters. We did, in a recent count we performed, there was a very large population of roosters out there. So therefore we are actively planning with an animal rescue organization to safely relocate some of the roosters to an environment where they'll be able to roam around freely and safely. So look for more information on social media before we relocate some of the roosters, but don't worry, the chickens there'll still be chickens there, but we're just reducing the size of the rooster population a little bit. On the recreation, finally, Camp Cotati Spring Break will take place from March 22nd to 26th during the week students have off from school. So we'll be open in person from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, providing children of all ages, children aged 5 to 12 with a safe and fun environment while school is out, following, of course, the health guidelines. Space is limited, so sign up early to ensure your space. On Monday, March 22nd, Food for Thought will be hosting a drive-through food drive at the community center behind City Hall to collect non-perishable food items, and they're collecting from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Additionally, the Rotary Club of Rancho Cotati is also partnering with us and the Redwood Empire Food Bank to host a drive-through food drive on Thursday, March 25th, just a couple days later, in La Plaza Park between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. They are also collecting non-perishable food items to help those that are in need. On March 28th, we will be hosting our Bunny Brunch to Go event, where families can drive through to pick up pancakes and egg breakfasts, a goodie bag for children with stuffed eggs and craft kits, and visit with the bunny, all from the convenience of their vehicles. And then a couple days later, on April 1st, we'll be delivering bunnygrams in Cotati. So each bunnygram includes a basket filled with eggs, stuffed with candy and other goodies. You can send a bunnygram to your family, friend, or neighbor for a nice spring surprise, although I think there is a geographic limit to what that is. So the deadline to order bunnygrams is March 29th, and you can register online for all of these upcoming programs and events on the city website. And one last thing, this Wednesday evening, so just tomorrow night, 6 p.m., and then Thursday afternoon at lunchtime, we are hosting virtual design workshops for Sunflower Park on East Cotati. As you all know, we already have the park capital plan, where we've been through quite a few public workshops on park design, but these workshops are intended to further that discussion and coincide with what we're working on right now is a Prop 68 grant application for park improvements. This is a state grant that was approved. It's basically a bond issuance approved by voters 5 or more years ago. So we are planning to apply for that, and Sunflower Park is actually the only park in Cotati that's eligible for that grant. So we're working on that. And if you want to participate in either of these workshops, you can email Ashley Wilson at cotaticity.org, or Zoom login info, which is posted on our website and on Facebook. One more thing, I was just reminded that Ralph Belts, who is one of our longtime maintenance workers, he's been with us for 20 years, is retiring next week. So that's very exciting for him and sad for us. But with that, I'll leave it there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Obid. I only had a couple of quick questions. Do we have a volume test for the loudest roosters? Which ones are going to be relocated?
Probably the most adoptable, the most cuddly looking ones, probably the prettiest ones.
And then Ralph is retiring next week. And do we typically do anything on an employee that might be like a 20-year employee?
Well, we have a plaque for him, and of course, lunch, and we, try to thoroughly embarrass him if we can during a lunchtime event. But that's typically about it.
And then the pretend gold watch, I imagine. Councilmember Sparks.
I just had a quick question about the local road safety plan website. I wasn't able to find that. If you sent that to me, is that something I could share out, or are you waiting until it goes live on social media?
I think it literally just went live, and so we're going to be pushing that link out here. I don't know, Craig, you might have a time frame there, but probably in the next day or so.
Yeah, anybody that has the link can go to the website. It just hasn't been put out there yet. We can certainly email everybody, the council members, the link to get them a head start on it. But we're going to put a link on our website and use social media to just broadcast that.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any questions for the city manager on the city manager's report? Council? Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Obid. Now we will move on to city council member report. Councilmember Ford.
Well, I'll just say real briefly, at my first meeting of the Russian River Watershed Association Board, which I'm thoroughly impressed with as an organization. It seems like an excellent use of our city money to accomplish a lot of things that are watershed wide. So this was a great meeting for me to, for my first one, because it was the adoption of the work plan for the next year. So it was a great overview of everything that the association does. And as we move into next year's planning and choosing projects, I will anticipate coming to you with suggestions for some of the special benefit projects that we currently perhaps choose not to participate in, but seem like might provide some benefit to the city. So we may see some of those next year. That's it.
Thank you, Ben. Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that this is the most appropriate time for me to share this. This is just some information I wanted to share that I'd like to send out to you. I attended the ILARO CAC meeting last week, and the reason I went is that they had a really excellent panel lined up to discuss the use of Lexapol in police policies. And I just wanted to make you aware that it was a really, really great discussion. They had a wide diversity of viewpoints there and experts from all over the country. And so I'd like to send out the recording link, or have Damien perhaps send out the recording link if you'd like to view it, if any of you would like to view it. Just really quickly, a couple of the things that I learned there were that of course, as a small city, trying to use anything other than Lexipol for our policing policies would be a major, huge challenge because it saves so much money. But at the same time, there was a lot of discussion from extroverts about how Lexipol tends to prioritize very broad discretion for police officers because it's more legally defensible. But there is a lot of evidence that going the opposite direction and actually providing really clear guidance and more narrow policies about use of force leads to a huge reduction in use of force complaints. This was tried out by the policing project in Camden, and they saw a 95% reduction in use of force complaints by having more clearly defined use of force policies and going away from Lexipol. I think it's important for us to take a look at this because our mayor signed on to the mayor's pledge, the Reimagining Policing pledge from Obama last year that basically committed us to reviewing and reforming our use of force policies. And I think it's important for us to learn all that we can about the different options that are out there. So just wanted to share that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sparks. Councilmember Harvey.
Yes, thank you. So on the 25th, I attended the North Bay Division meeting, and we had a speaker from the Othering and Belonging Institute, Stephen Menendian, and it was understanding racial inequality in the San Francisco Bay Area. And there was a lot of information, and I can forward that information. It was a great discussion and just kind of the evolution of what has happened over the Bay Area for decades was really very, very interesting. And as a follow-on to that, the North Bay Division hosted on 3/2 a coffee chat so people could, kind of absorb the information for a few days and then, chat about it. And that discussion was also well attended, and the comments were well received and really started a lot of the conversation around some things that we may ultimately be looking to do differently. I'm going to guess that we will probably bring this presenter back again because he had a lot of information on a lot of subjects, and we kind of just tipped the iceberg on a lot of them. So very interesting there. Today I spent 2.5 hours on the Russian River Biological Opinion and Public Policy Facilitating Committee meeting. That was really very interesting. They gave some updates on the Dry Creek project, about flood patterns and how those impact the Dry Creek area, and estuary management for the salmonoids, and fish habitat flows and water rights. But it was really very informative, a lot of information. The other thing that they shared is 3 videos that they prepared that we ultimately probably can put on our website about the water from Sonoma Water, how we get our water. And they were very, as Supervisor Hopkins says, she felt like she could take them home and share them with her children, and they would get a really good understanding about where our water comes from and stuff. So they were, trying to take a very complicated subjects and really putting it in layman's terms and in sort of I want to say cartoon, but kind of cartoonish, characters to describe it. But those were something that I think would be worthwhile for us to have on our website. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. I do not have anything to report out on the REMIF, and I did attend the Chamber of Commerce meeting briefly, and they had a somewhat successful fundraiser in their drive-through crab feed just recently, which was good because Ramona Park had to postpone theirs because there was no crab. So Cotati Chamber lucked out on that, and they were able to raise some funds on that, so that was successful. And then they're looking forward to doing some sort of maybe not a shopping stroll, but maybe a potential shop event in the park or something like that, as restrictions permit and of course weather permitting. So that would be a welcome sign if that were to occur down the road. And that's all I have to report out on that. Councilmember Harvey, did you have another comment? Councilmember Ford.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. I wanted to ask you actually if you could report a little on the weekly meetings of mayors and what I think those are still happening, aren't they? And I'm just wondering what sorts of discussions happen at those and whether there's information that would help us. That's all.
Absolutely. If for those that may not be aware, the mayors have been meeting weekly in an informal electronic format to discuss primarily the COVID issues and what each city is doing in those regards and how they're addressing those. We have, last week we had Community Development Department head Bobby Robinson, and she talked about much of the information that Damien just shared with the COVID and what tiers we're at and what the levels were that we need to try to get down to, and just kind of a back and forth on what other cities are doing. At one point there was a comment from one of the mayors regarding the concern with the businesses and if we could accelerate any of that. And I think at the behest of some of the other mayors, they said that was not a good idea and you might not want to do that. So it's almost a sounding board for each of the cities to talk to each other about. And then we're going to continue those. We did have, prior to that, we had new supervisor Chris Corsi talking about the implementation of Blue Shield taking over on the management of the COVID and the vaccinations and things like that. So those are some of the topics that come about. It's purely advisory, so there's no action taken on those. Yeah, so we're okay in that regard. And one of the things I think is good is much more of a collaborative regional thought process than we've had previously. And so in that regard, it's pretty good. But I do thank you for reminding me, because that was last Thursday, and this is a whole new week.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
I appreciate that. Vice Mayor Lemon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I almost forgot, since I'd spoken in SCTA, I probably covered the most exciting and for us the most impactful meeting, but a couple other things I'll just report quickly. First of all, at RCPA, we also, at the same meeting, had a long discussion kind of just beginning to finalize a draft of a Sonoma County climate mobilization strategy. At a basic level, this is an attempt by RCPA to put together an organized approach to GHG reduction in all sectors throughout the county. As you can imagine, that is a rather momentous thing to do. And of course, RCPA is a very small agency with little resources or executive or legislative power. So it would be more of an organizing effort to work through the various governments of the cities and county and all the bigger organizations like Sonoma Clean Power or Zero Waste Sonoma. This is, of course, at a very, very early stage, and it will be subject to a lot of work for several years, I expect. And lastly, at Legislative Committee, nothing really heating up in legislation yet, but that will happen soon. It's beginning to see a lot of bills occur. But I wanted to mention we did elect new officers for the year, and the new chair of our Legislative Committee is Mr. Chris Rogers, Mayor Chris Rogers from Santa Rosa. And Melanie Bagby, recovering mayor from Cloverdale, will be the vice chair. So that's my report for this meeting.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lehman. There was another issue that came up, and Mr. Obid may have shared it with our 2x2x2 representatives. I think it's Councilmember Harvey and Councilmember Sparks. I'm correct on But there is a desire for Roanoke Park to connect with the representatives on that and the Cotati Roanoke Park Unified School District. So you may see something coming up on that. I know that they are scrambling as much as they can to try to get the schools open in a safe environment. So that's going to be difficult. Councilmember Sparks?
Yeah, I should have mentioned, I think a meeting for that has actually been scheduled for next Tuesday, so.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific. So I think that's all we have on that, unless there's any other comment from the council, and seeing none, I would open up for public comment on non-action agenda items. I don't see any attendees in our other room. Is that correct, Ms. Burgess?
Correct. No public comment.
Thank you. It's so rare that I am correct. And do we have any information received after the agenda was posted?
Nothing further.
Well, with that, I thank you all very much. I want you all to stay safely so that we can meet again next Tuesday. And have a very good evening, and I will adjourn the meeting at 9:04 p.m. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Night all.
Good night, everybody.
And I'm concerned it's taken out the reference to the 2 lowest billing periods. It just says volume factor shall be reevaluated using method